Right, this is the very last video of 2019. It's this time of year where we're all busy with friends and family, Christmas shopping, decorating the tree and wrapping presents. And views on a motorcycle channel in general tend to end up in the toilet. Or at least they do on this motorcycle channel. First things first, I've had a few complaints about the commentary audio on my videos over the last year. Now, the equipment that I bought in the first place wasn't top-rated stuff. There simply wasn't the money there when I started the channel off. And it's had 3 years solid use, so it wasn't exactly at its best. Now, I always thought it was okay, but I was listening back to one of my videos on my smart TV a couple of weeks ago, and I realised that on a larger sort of device like that, the sound wasn't optimal. It sounded a bit muffled. Although, to me, to be quite honest, it sounded okay on a phone or on a computer. Now, it's taken some time because sound recording equipment is very expensive. But I've been saving my pennies up, and this week I've invested in some new equipment. Now, for me, the jury is still out on this. I'm not entirely convinced it's any different from what I was using before. Sound quality wise, that is. I've spent hours trying to get this set up to sound right. I'm hoping I've got it right, but if it turns out that the sound on this video isn't optimal, please let me know and I'll see what I can do. Now, it's a completely different recording system to the one that I've used in the past, and if it does work out, it's certainly going to streamline my workflow. It is a lot quicker and easier to use than the system that I was using before. But for me, I suppose it's sort of fear of the unknown. It's a completely new experience, so just bear with me. So back to the subject of today's video. To be quite honest, I've never had any requests to do this, but it's Christmas, views are low, I figured probably hardly anybody's going to watch it, so I thought I'd indulge myself and make a video that pleases me. Waxed cotton jackets, waxed cotton luggage and other waxed cotton accessories are gaining in popularity again. They are a very traditional and organic material, but I think they probably went out of favour as far back as the 1980s, with people preferring leather and then in later stages textile motorcycle clothing, which arguably is safer and of a higher performance than waxed cotton ever was. With the resurgence of the modern classic motorcycle, these sort of products have come back in favour, with companies like Belstaff and Barber dipping the toes back into motorcycle clothing, both brands that in the past had turned into sort of fashion brands. A sad situation, but that's the way the world works. Now, unlike modern motorcycle clothing textiles, which tend to have a fairly short lifespan, waxed cotton can last for decades. But it's not maintenance free, it needs to be looked after. In fact, it needs to be cleaned and re-waxed about once a year, even if you're not using it that much. The wax dressing does dry out over time and becomes less effective. And on top of that, normal abrasion through use wears the wax dressing away. Now, it might sound silly, but this became a sort of a Christmas tradition for me. My very first motorcycle jacket was a waxed cotton jacket. It was a Belstaff Toemaster, if my memory serves me correctly. And going back to my college days, the Christmas period, that time between Christmas and New Year, was a bit of a non-entity for me. All my mates that I used to ride with, they had extended family down for Christmas, staying over, that kind of thing. We would usually meet up for a drink at the pub on Christmas Eve, and then that would be it until New Year. We wouldn't see each other again. So I would end up being Billy No Mates for a week, and I had to find something to do. So as I say, it became my Christmas tradition to get my waxed cotton jacket, clean it, and then retreat it, so that it was clean and waterproof for another year. As it stands at the moment, I don't have a waxed cotton jacket, I can't afford it. But I do have some waxed cotton products, the treatment being exactly the same. So for this video, I chose my Barely brand tool roll. It is a really good product. It's really had some abuse over the last 2 years. This tool roll with the tools inside it has been my go-to toolkit for 2 years now. and it's big enough to contain just about all the tools I need for your average bit of spannering. I've used it in all weathers. Generally speaking, I video or work outside, mainly because the garage is too full of bikes to work inside. It's been exposed to extreme heat outside, extreme cold, rain, snow, and grubby, oily hands. It's also been left in a cold, damp garage for extended lengths of time, which isn't good for waxed cotton. And the last time it was exposed to rain, I did notice that the rain wasn't sort of sitting on it, it was soaking into it. It's also the perfect size for easy filming for this video. Now, in preparation for re-waxing your jacket, I would advise that you get some warm water, a clean sponge, and then dampen the sponge and give the jacket a good wipe down all over to get any surface dirt off, rinsing your sponge out in the warm water regularly as you go along. Then allow the jacket to dry thoroughly before starting the reproofing process. Now, I skipped that process with my tool roll because it is a tool roll and not a jacket. But dog hairs, and in particular willow hairs, are my arch nemesis with everything that I do. Willow hairs are a major headache for me for every filming session that I have, because they get everywhere and they stick to everything, and my tool roll was no different. So I did give it a quick hoover down to get rid of as many hairs and bits and pieces of dust as I could. Now, this can be a bit of a messy job, so make sure that you put plenty of newspaper out on the surface area that you're working on. You'll also need a bowl or a pan of hot water and the wax dressing of your choice. There are dozens of brands of this stuff available. I use the Barber stuff because price-wise it's quite reasonable and I know it works. It's also very easy to get hold of. I will leave a link in the video description down below for anyone that fancies giving it a try. You'll also need a large pan of hot water, not boiling, just hot. And I say a large pan of water because a small pan of water will cool too quickly, and you want the water to stay hot for as long as possible. With larger items like a jacket, you may have to reheat the water several times during the process. Open your tin of your wax dressing and then sit it in the pan of hot water, making sure that it's touching the bottom and not floating. You don't want it floating about because it might tip over. As the contents of the tin melt, stir it regularly until it becomes about the consistency of wallpaper paste. You're also going to need a clean microfiber cloth or a sponge, and one of my favourite pieces of equipment, the very universal special motorcycle tool HD01. Now, for best results, it's best to work in a warm indoor environment. And you can, if you wish, use HD01 to warm the garment up in the areas that you're working on before you apply the wax dressing. This stops the dressing from setting too quickly and allows it to soak into the fabric, which makes the job a lot easier. Now, I always like to work on a section or a panel at a time. Then, as you complete each section, move on to the next one. Pay particular attention where the fabric is thick, at seams, etc. You're going to have at least double the thickness of fabric in those areas, so you're going to need to use a little bit more of the dressing. Having said that, don't put too much on. You don't want it to end up looking like a cross-channel swimmer. Now, what I like to do as I finish each section or panel is to apply heat to that panel using HD01. And you do this to remelt the wax dressing and to get it to soak into the fabric completely. This allows it to soak into areas that you might have missed, and it also shows up the areas where you've put too much on. Now, the areas with excess dressing on will show up as wet areas as you apply the heat. Wet areas that don't go away. Whilst you're still running the heat over this, use your application cloth to just gently wipe away this excess. It does take a little bit of practice both applying this dressing and working out where the excess is and removing it, but you soon get your eye in. And what you're looking for is a nice uniform finish, which as it cools down is just left with a very light sheen. Now this wax dressing is also suitable for vegetable tanned leathers. I'm not saying that you should do an entire leather motorcycle jacket, but for garments or articles that do have leather straps, etc., leather tabs, it's perfectly okay to use this dressing on it. It will waterproof the leather almost as well as it waterproofs the cotton, and it'll also help preserve the leather. Be careful not to overheat it, you don't want to damage anything, and you don't want to dry the natural oils out that are in the actual dressing itself. And just follow this process all the way around the garment or the product until you've got a good uniform finish that you're happy with. Now in the case of this tool roll, I actually did the outside and the inside, because when I'm using it, it does tend to lay open and exposed to the elements for long periods of time. If you do find areas that are a little bit light that indicates that you've missed it, it's not a problem, just reapply a little bit more wax in that area, then reheat it, and then wipe away any excess. You don't have to scrub it away, just a light brushing action is all that's needed to take the excess off while it's warm. The manufacturers of these wax dressings usually have their own secret formulas. Generally speaking, it'll be a mixture of refined linseed oil, paraffin wax and beeswax, and probably some sort of solvent to keep it soft and easy to work with, something like a refined white spirit. What you should be left with is a fully retextured and re-waterproof garment that looks almost as good, if not better, than the day you bought it. In the case of a motorcycle jacket, what I would advise you do once you've finished treating it is hang it up in a warm room for about 24 hours, just to make sure that any of those solvents have evaporated, and then it should be fine to use. It's the first time that I've treated this tool roll, and I have to say I was really pleased with the results. Despite all the abuse that it's had over the last 2 years, it really did come up better than new. The whole operation from start to finish only took about 20 minutes, and it's now protected and waterproofed and good to go for another 1 or 2 years. Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch not only this video but all the videos that I've made during the course of 2019. I really do appreciate the time that people put aside to watch the videos that I produce. This channel would be nothing without you. I'd also like to shout out a sincere thanks to my patrons. Without you, it would quite simply be impossible to continue this channel the way that I do. Right, that's it from me now until the 3rd of January 2020. I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. So until next year, ride safely, and I'll see you soon.